My name is Willie E. Woods. I am from the class of 1985, and I am the current chairman of the board of trustees for Morehouse College. And I am the recipient of the Bennie Award for Service for 2026. I mean, it's a very exciting moment. I've been to many candles and have had to officiate many candles as the chairman. And so I've seen all of the incredible people that has been honored and what they've did to be honored, and to be part of this auspicious group of folks who have been honored over the many years I've seen. Is just one of the highlights of my life, frankly, to be honored by the college, who has done so much for me and is so responsible for the person I've become. And it's just the highest honor I could achieve. Look, I grew up in Pontiac, Michigan, which was an automotive town. It's a suburb of Detroit, about 30 miles north. And in my community where I grew up, most people went to work for the automotive industry. Not a lot of people went to college. And even when I was in high school, I was not thinking about preparing myself for college or doing the kinds of things you need to do in preparation for college. I was, living in the moment, going through the routines. None of my family ever went to college. And so there were no role models to look at and get a sense of why you would go to college. And so when I graduated from high school, with the not so great GPA, I realized that I needed to do something. And going to a college really wasn't an option because I hadn't really prepared myself. And so I went off just to a work study program or a government work study program that was administered through the Pontiac Area Urban League. And in that program, we were doing a lot of manual work at the state parks of Michigan. I think one day we changed out all of the barbecue grills, right? With, using a sludge hammer to knock off the cement so we could move them over. I think the day after that, we emptied all the big green garbage cans, right? That were full and all needed to be emptied in a garbage truck. And so, I knew then after that first week in that program, I needed to go to college and get an education so that I could create a better opportunity for myself. And as that program went on, I ended up having a lot of success in that program. And I went to junior college at night to kind of get my GPA up so that a college would accept me. And in that program, ultimately I became a crew leader of the people that I was working with. And I was also the youngest person in the program, which was like a 1-year program. Well, during that program, I met a counselor that had suggested me considering HBCUs as a college option. I was looking at some other colleges, and Morehouse was one of the names that he had mentioned along with Howard. And I did a little work and knew about Morehouse's history. So I decided to apply to Morehouse, and I was fortunate enough to get in. And that's where the transformation happened. I certainly came there with ambition and a certainly different mindset, having now set out of taking a year off after graduating from high school. Certainly got more mature. The camp certainly helped me define better what I ultimately wanted to do. But Morehouse is ultimately where I got the real confidence and the real skills and the development, right, to ultimately become who I am today. And it wasn't easy for me at Morehouse. And I just told you I was not a great student in high school, ill prepared, did a little better in junior college, but certainly got to Morehouse and, had to work, my tail off the first year just trying to catch up and stay ahead. And again, because I was a year older, when everybody was, running off to the Omni Center and hanging out and well prepared as freshmen because they came from these great high schools, I stayed in my dorm room night and day at Robert Hall, just cranking to just keep up with the work. And what I loved about the brotherhood at Morehouse is people would call you out, right? You would use a verb out of context or would not speak appropriately. The older brothers would say, "Hey man, you here at Morehouse, you got to talk better than that." And so being in an environment where you had that kind of role, those kinds of roles models, you had people who looked like you all trying to achieve things. You had a faculty who cared about you and wanted to make sure you were your best. Really motivated me to take advantage of the situation at Morehouse. And as I moved from freshman to senior, I just developed into an excellent student. And ultimately graduated in the top of the class and certainly in the top of my field in accounting. But it was that culture, that nurturing, that faculty, that brotherhood at Morehouse that gave me the confidence and the tools to be able to do that. And so when I graduated, I was a completely different person. I was a person who thought now that there was nothing I couldn't do. And it was just a matter of me choosing what my path would look like, because Morehouse had well equipped me to be the best person I could be. And so that led to my first job of ultimately going back to Detroit to work for the biggest bank in Michigan, National Bank of Detroit. And I purposely wanted to do that because, again, what you learn at Morehouse is it's not just about you. It's about helping the next brother, the next group of folks behind you, contributing to your community. And I thought, what better way to do that to go back to my hometown, work at the biggest bank there and get really involved in my community to be able to help those who didn't either get the benefit of an education, right, or who just needed the help. And so as a successful professional in the Michigan area, now working at the biggest bank, I was able to join the board of the Pontiac Urban League, the same organization that had the program. I was on that board. I had restarted a youth group called the Michigan Association for Leadership Development that was mentoring young Black men and, Black boys, I should say, in middle school and in high school in the Pontiac area. And obviously, there was a group of HBCUs students who would all come to Detroit from Clark and other places. And so from a social perspective, it was great. But that Morehouse training of going back to your community, being successful as a professional, but also, giving of yourself to that community to help out those who are less fortunate, was something that helped me, frankly, get to the next level. Because when I decided I wanted to go to business school, I knew, right, that you had to be able to tell a story on that business school application, particularly the one that I wanted to go to. And I had made a decision that I wanted to get to New York City and get to Wall Street, that I had kind of outgrown Detroit. And the way to do that would be business school. And the business school had to be one of the best in the country, if not the world. And so I had a lot of business school applications on my desk and ultimately decided to fill out the Harvard one first because it was the most difficult, required the most information. And it took so long to complete that application between work that I was still heavily involved in and completing the application I ultimately only got that one done, and I was fortunate enough to get accepted into the Harvard Business School. But again, going back to my experience, I knew that that application required you to tell a story about yourself. And that story had to be compelling and unique, because there's like 8,000 people that's applying to a school that's got 800 spots. So you got to be differentiated. And my story was, I went to this great college called Morehouse that is singularly focused on young Black males. I started with this GPA as a freshman and ultimately graduated with this GPA as a senior that showed consistent progression upward. I purposely went back to my community and were involved in these organizations that made a positive impact on those communities. And, I was very successful at work. I got promoted multiple times. I stayed longer than I probably should have because of those promotions. But that story resonated very well with the business school. And I know that because when I showed up, I went over to admissions just to thank them. And when I said who I was, they immediately knew who I was because they remember reading my story. But Morehouse was very much a part of that story and very much the impetus for why I did some of the things I do, not necessarily to get into business school, but frankly, it was the training and the thinking and the philosophy around helping the next person and contributing something positive to your community. So that gets me to business school. That turned out to be a great experience, and ultimately business school allowed me to meet some people that were very influential in helping me start my own business, that being ICB Partners, which is a private equity firm that's been around for 25 years, that has managed, well over $2 billion of capital. And even in that business, right, part of what I wanted to do was make sure that people of color got an opportunity in this field. So when I started that firm, I went out of my way to hire young brothers and sisters who were having a difficult time getting into private equity because, mainly in my opinion, who they were and what they looked like. There was very few folks when I started my business of color in this business. And here we are, 25 years later, 60, 70 people later, that's gone through our associate program. Half of them have gone to great business schools. Some of them have started their own businesses. But again, that service of helping, the next generation get to a place that I had to be one of the first ones to sort of trailblaze the path, is again consistent with the service part of what this award is about. Service to community, and a service to the college. The first thing I would tell people, and I think, Morehouse is good at this, but everybody's got something to offer. Everybody's got some unique traits and some unique values. And it is about them finding what that is and staying away from the benchmarking against others. I really pride myself in not getting caught up benchmarking myself against the next successful brother and feeling like I needed to do something different. Because there's a lot of ways to earn success. And you can't do it by either trying to mimic somebody else or benchmark yourself against somebody else. There's going to always be people who have done either better than you or worse than you. And that almost don't matter, right? It's about your measuring stick for yourself. That's what matters, right? And if you decided you wanted to be a college professor and you were the best college professor that you thought you can be, you've been hugely successful. If you were decided that you wanted to be, in the social media business, and you've been the best social media marketing person that you think you could be, that's success, right? It's not about another person's success or what society views as success. It's about what you view, and just stay on that path of what you think your success should look like, and develop it for yourself and not let others get in the way of that. That's probably the biggest advice I would offer, right? I mean, even as a young high school student, when I was, around, the brothers in the hood, everybody had their thing, right? Whether it was smoking weed or breaking into people's house, whatever it was. And there were a lot of times where people tried to influence me to do these things in order for me to be cool. And I just was the opposite. I didn't smoke weed just because you did. I didn't, to this day, I don't drink alcohol, never have. And not, despite like how everybody thought drinking alcohol was cool, right? I decided to go back to Michigan and not to New York City after Morehouse, when everybody thought going to New York City was the move, right? Like, that's success, right? Like, I got a job at a big bank in New York City. That's where I'm going. I was like, no, I'm going to Michigan. And so every decision I made has been grounded in what I thought was best for me, and where I aligned my success. And even to this day, right? There are people who've raised bigger funds than me, who had more success than me, even though I was early, right? And I'm still focused on what I define as my success. And if you do that, it will make it a lot less stressful